The courtyard of the Zen temple was silent at dawn, pale sunlight spilling across the stone floor. Daniel walked with unease, his heart restless from sleepless nights. Suddenly Master Hiroshi said, "Daniel has lost his path." The words echoed like thunder in the still air, freezing Daniel where he stood. The disciples gasped, their eyes darting toward him, while Ethan smirked faintly, whispering, "Even the devoted falter." Daniel's chest tightened, and shame seared through him as if a blade had struck. His lips trembled, and he whispered, "How could I lose what I never truly held?" Master Hiroshi's eyes remained calm, unmoved by the storm his words created. Daniel's thoughts spun, and the world seemed to collapse around him. The rustle of leaves carried the weight of unspoken judgment, and in that moment, Daniel felt stripped of everything he thought he knew. Daniel stumbled into his chamber, his chest heaving with questions that tore at him. Master Hiroshi's words echoed mercilessly in his skull. Daniel has lost his path. Each repetition struck like a hammer, deepening the wound. He whispered to himself, "How could my devotion vanish so easily?" His thoughts thrashed like waves against stone. Nights of failed meditation returned to him like ghosts, each one a reminder of hollow silence. Ethan's smirk burned more than the master's judgment, and the memory stung. Daniel pressed his palms hard against his forehead, his skin damp with sweat. The chamber's silence mocked him, offering no comfort, as shadows stretched across the stone walls, twisting into cruel shapes. He closed his eyes in desperation, praying for peace, yet finding only a deeper void within. That evening, Daniel walked the courtyard again, trying to soothe his restless thoughts, but Ethan waited near the temple gate, his arms folded. Ethan said, "So, the perfect disciple bleeds like the rest of us." His voice dripped with sarcasm. Daniel's jaw tightened, anger swelling with shame. He whispered, "You know nothing of my journey." Ethan chuckled, his tone sharp. "I know enough to see you drowning in illusions." Daniel clenched his fists, struggling to hold his voice steady. "I only seek peace." Ethan's eyes glimmered coldly as he asked, "Peace or applause?" The words pierced like a blade into Daniel's heart. He stepped back, his breath unsteady, while Ethan turned away with a careless shrug, leaving him trembling in the creeping shadows of dusk. The next morning, Daniel approached Master Hiroshi, his steps hesitant, his chest heavy. He said, "Master, tell me why I have fallen." Master Hiroshi's eyes were serene as still water. "You see falling where there is only walking," he replied, his tone soft yet piercing. Daniel's breath caught confusion twisting through him. He said, "But I cannot feel peace," his voice cracking. Hiroshi turned to face the rising sun, golden light outlining his profile. "Peace is not something you feel, it is something you stop disturbing," he answered. The words unsettled Daniel like riddles wrapped in silence. His shoulders sank as he whispered, "Then what am I to do?" Master Hiroshi stood calm, hands folded, offering no reply. The morning wind carried his stillness into Daniel's storm. That night, Daniel lay awake on his straw mat, the lantern's flame flickering shadows across rough walls. The words of Hiroshi echoed, "You see falling where there is only walking." Ethan's cruel whisper lingered, "Peace or applause?" Daniel rolled onto his side, eyes wide, heart pounding against silence. He muttered, "Why do their words cut so deep?" His breath came in shallow bursts, tangled with doubt. The ceiling above felt heavy, pressing like a weight upon him. Memories of failed meditation surged through his mind, each collapse sharper than the last. His eyes welled, though he resisted tears. Crickets sang beyond the thin chamber walls, mocking his restlessness. Sleep fled him, leaving only despair that settled like stone inside his chest. Daniel walked alone along the temple corridor, shadows trailing him like doubts he could not escape. His mind replayed Hiroshi's words again and again until they carved into him like stone. He whispered, "What if my whole life has been a lie?" His steps faltered, the wooden floor creaking under the weight of his despair. Lanterns flickered softly, mocking him with their steady glow. He pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the hollow ache inside. "I tried to follow the teachings," he muttered, "but still, I fall into emptiness. His thoughts tangled in questions with no end. He leaned against the wooden pillar, trembling, his breath shallow. For the first time, he feared that the silence of the temple would consume him before he found peace. In the garden, Daniel sat hunched on the edge of a stone path, his gaze fixed on the ground. Sarah, a fellow disciple, approached with quiet steps. She knelt beside him, her voice gentle. "The storm inside you is not the end, Daniel." He turned to her, his jaw tight. "Then why does it feel endless?" Sarah touched the earth with her fingers, whispering, "Even storms must pass." Her words were simple, yet they reached him in a way silence never could. Daniel's chest loosened, but doubt still clouded his heart. He whispered, "I cannot see beyond the storm." Sarah met his eyes with a soft smile, her calm presence a mirror to what he longed to become. That night, Daniel tried to meditate in the courtyard, but his thoughts refused stillness. Ethan's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "You sit like a statue, yet inside you quake." Daniel's eyes opened, his face strained with anger. "I am trying," he said. Ethan stepped closer, his smirk widening. "Trying is nothing but failure stretched thin." Daniel clenched his fists, his body trembling under the weight of fury. "Why do you mock me?" he asked through gritted teeth. Ethan tilted his head, eyes sharp. "Because illusions deserve mockery." The words stabbed deep, forcing Daniel into silence. The night air felt colder as Ethan walked away, his robe swaying like shadows carried by arrogance. Daniel remained still, his heart heavy with shame. The next morning, Daniel sat in meditation hall with the other disciples. Sunlight streamed through narrow windows, casting golden beams on the floor. His body trembled as he struggled for stillness, each breath jagged. Master Hiroshi sat at the front, eyes closed, serenity radiating from him. Daniel's mind screamed with unrest, memories of failure battering him. Suddenly he shouted, "I cannot do this." Gasps echoed as the disciples opened their eyes. Daniel rose to his feet, shaking, fists clenched. "Every silence feels like emptiness crushing me," he said, his voice breaking. Hiroshi did not move, his calmness unshaken. Daniel's outburst shattered the quiet like thunder through the temple, leaving the hall heavy with tension. After the hall emptied, Daniel stood before Master Hiroshi, trembling with shame. He bowed low, his forehead nearly touching the floor. "I have failed," he whispered. Hiroshi's eyes were steady as still water. He said softly, "You seek to conquer silence, but silence cannot be conquered." Daniel raised his head, confusion shadowing his face. "Then what must I do?" he asked. Hiroshi turned slowly toward the temple garden, his back straight and breath even. "Stop waging war against your own heart," he replied. Daniel lowered his gaze, his body heavy with unspoken questions. Yet a faint spark glimmered in his chest, as if the words had planted a seed. In the meditation hall, Master Hiroshi stood before the disciples, his calm voice carrying weight. He said, "Daniel, your task is to sit before the waterfall until silence enters you." Daniel's eyes widened, his stomach sinking. "How long must I sit?" he asked. Hiroshi's gaze did not waver. "Until silence comes to you." The disciples looked on, whispering among themselves. Daniel's chest tightened, the thought of endless hours under crashing water filling him with dread. Ethan smirked in the corner, his eyes glinting with mockery. Daniel bowed reluctantly, though his heart trembled with fear. He whispered to himself, "I cannot win against silence, yet I cannot refuse." The task loomed over him like a mountain he was unprepared to climb. Daniel sat cross-legged at the edge of the roaring waterfall, spray soaking his robe. Hours passed, as the relentless sound battered his mind. He tried to focus on his breath, but each inhale grew ragged. "Why can I not stop this storm?" he muttered. His fists pressed against his knees, nails biting into skin. The water thundered like mocking laughter. Daniel shouted suddenly, "Enough!" His voice drowned in the roar, unheard by anyone. Rage surged, and he struck the ground with his fist, his knuckles splitting against stone. Tears blurred his vision, mixing with the spray. The task had stripped him bare, leaving him raw and desperate. He collapsed forward, his body trembling as the waterfall crushed every thought of peace. From a distance, Michael, the silent witness, stood beneath a cedar tree, watching Daniel's struggle. His shaved head gleaming, his robe dark and dry despite the spray. His eyes followed Daniel, not with judgment but with quiet presence. Daniel, unaware, continued trembling, his breath ragged. Michael did not move or speak, yet his stillness carried more power than words. Birds shifted in the branches above, but he remained unmoved. Daniel collapsed to his knees, his spirit breaking. Yet the witness simply observed, a mirror of calm. His silence spoke of a truth Daniel could not yet touch. In that quiet, Daniel's rage felt smaller, though he could not name why. Later, in the courtyard, Ethan approached Daniel as he stumbled back, dripping and exhausted. Ethan's smirk deepened. "So, the waterfall defeated you?" Daniel glared, his chest heaving. "You know nothing of my struggle," he snapped. Ethan leaned closer, his voice sharp as a blade. "Struggle is for the weak. You cling to illusions while the world laughs." Daniel's fists shook, his body quivering with fury. "Why do you torment me?" he demanded. Ethan tilted his head, smirk widening. "Because you still believe peace can be found." His words seared Daniel's heart, leaving him burning with anger. The courtyard seemed to close in as silence stretched, broken only by Daniel's ragged breath. That night, Daniel lay awake, dreams overtaking him as he drifted into uneasy sleep. In the dream, he saw himself crying alone in an empty street. The boy's eyes were filled with fear and shame. Daniel whispered, "I thought I buried you." The shadow child replied, "I am you still." Daniel staggered back, clutching his chest. The boy's face twisted into sorrow and anger, reflecting everything Daniel had avoided. "You cannot silence me until you face me," the child said. Daniel wept, reaching out his hand, but the boy vanished into the darkness. He awoke gasping, tears on his face, his heart pounding with the truth of what haunted him. At twilight, Daniel wandered to the temple gate, his body heavy with sleepless nights. The air smelled of rain, and the sky glowed with fading crimson light. Suddenly, a cloaked stranger appeared, their presence unsettling yet calm. The stranger's eyes glimmered with mystery as they whispered, "Why do you wrestle with silence as though it were an enemy?" Daniel stiffened, his voice trembling. "Who are you?" The figure's cloak swayed in the evening wind as they replied, "One who comes and goes." Daniel's heart thudded, his breath shallow. The stranger's words struck deeper than steel, shattering his fragile defenses. For the first time, he felt that his struggle was being seen by someone beyond the temple walls. As rain began to fall, the stranger leaned closer, their voice sharp and soft at once. "The river never fights its current. Why do you?" Daniel's shoulders sagged, his robe plastered to his body by the downpour. "Because I am drowning," he cried. The stranger tilted their head, rain dripping from the hood. "You drown because you cling to the water instead of letting it carry you." Daniel's heart throbbed at the words, his mind caught in their paradox. He whispered, "I do not understand." The stranger's expression was unreadable, yet their silence pressed on Daniel's spirit more than speech. The riddle lingered as thunder rolled overhead. Daniel stood in the rain long after the stranger disappeared, his mind echoing with their riddle. His chest rose and fell, as if each breath carried a weight too great. He whispered, "I cling to silence like an enemy." For the first time, he recognized that his struggle was not with the world, but with himself. Images of Hiroshi, Sarah, Ethan, and even Michael's watchful silence flooded his thoughts. Each had mirrored a piece of his brokenness. His knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the wet stone, hands pressed to the ground. The rain mingled with his tears, cleansing him in its relentless rhythm. His heart trembled, but for a moment, the storm inside seemed to soften. The next morning, Daniel stood before Master Hiroshi, drenched from the night's storm. His voice cracked as he said, "I do not know how to fight what I feel." Hiroshi's gaze softened, though his body remained still. "You lose because you fight," he replied. Daniel's eyes stung, his throat tight. "Then what am I to do?" Hiroshi walked slowly toward the garden, his hands folded behind his back. "Let go of victory and defeat. Sit in the current of life and you will see." Daniel followed, each step heavy, yet strangely lighter. Hiroshi's words echoed like riddles carved into his bones, seeds of truth waiting to grow. That night Daniel dreamt again, but this time the shadow appeared older, a mirror of himself. A figure with his own face stood before him, eyes dark with regret. The shadow whispered, "I am every failure you refuse to embrace." Daniel's knees weakened, his chest aching. "I cannot carry you," he pleaded. The shadow stepped closer, its face twisted by sorrow and anger. "You already do." Daniel reached out, his trembling hands brushing against his own reflection. For the first time, he did not turn away. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he whispered, "Then I must accept you." The shadow began to fade, leaving Daniel trembling in the darkness but strangely lighter. Daniel returned to the courtyard, the night heavy with silence. He knelt on the stone floor, his body trembling with exhaustion. His mind echoed with Hiroshi's words, the stranger's riddle, and the shadow's confession. He pressed his fists against the ground, his voice breaking. "I cannot carry this weight anymore." His chest heaved, his throat tight with suppressed tears. The disciples watched from afar, whispering, but none approached. Daniel's breath came ragged, his spirit cracking like glass under pressure. He cried out into the emptiness, "I have nothing left." The admission rang across the courtyard like thunder, raw and unguarded. In that moment, Daniel felt stripped bare, his pride shattered. Daniel's arms gave way, and he collapsed fully onto the cold stone. His face pressed against the rough surface as tears streamed freely. He whispered brokenly, "I am lost." His sobs echoed through the quiet temple grounds, raw and unrestrained. For the first time, he did not fight them. He let every tear fall, every wound open. His body shook with release as years of buried grief spilled into the night. The disciples looked away, unsettled by the rawness of his collapse. Daniel gasped between sobs, "I am nothing." His voice cracked, but his surrender was absolute. He no longer tried to appear strong. The silence of the temple absorbed his pain, holding it without judgment. As Daniel wept, footsteps approached softly. Master Hiroshi stood over him, his presence calm and unshaken. He did not speak. He simply watched Daniel's collapse with eyes that carried both compassion and stillness. Daniel lifted his tear-streaked face, whispering, "Master, I am broken." Hiroshi did not move, his silence heavier than words. Daniel's breath slowed under the weight of his gaze. "Why do you not answer?" Daniel asked, his voice trembling. Hiroshi's expression remained serene, his presence anchoring the storm. The silence stretched until Daniel felt his sobs soften. It was as if Hiroshi's stillness absorbed his despair, showing him that nothing needed to be resisted. Daniel closed his eyes, the last of his tears falling. In the silence, he felt a shift. The crushing weight in his chest loosened, replaced by a strange stillness. His thoughts no longer screamed, they dissolved like mist. He whispered, "There was never a battle." A wave of peace washed over him, not dramatic but quiet and vast. His breath steadied, and his hands relaxed against the stone. He opened his eyes to the night sky, stars glowing above the temple. For the first time he did not search for answers. He simply existed in the moment. The silence he had feared now embraced him like a gentle tide, leaving him lighter than he had ever been. Daniel sat upright, no longer trembling. His eyes reflected the starlight, calm and clear. He whispered, "The silence was always within me." Master Hiroshi placed a hand on his shoulder, still silent, but his touch anchored Daniel's awakening. Ethan lingered nearby, his smirk gone, his expression shaken. Sarah stepped forward, her gentle smile soft with recognition. The disciples watched in hushed awe. Daniel inhaled slowly, his breath deep and steady. The stillness filled him, not empty but alive. For the first time he felt whole. He lifted his gaze to the horizon, whispering, "I am here." The words were simple, yet they carried the weight of transformation. At dawn, Daniel walked slowly through the temple grounds, the air cool and filled with the scent of pine. His steps were steady, no longer burdened by haste or fear. Birds stirred in the branches above, their wings breaking the silence with gentle rhythm. He whispered, "Each step is enough." The disciples watched from a distance, their eyes soft with curiosity. The sky glowed with a pale gold that seemed to mirror his calm. Where once his eyes had been clouded with doubt, now they reflected a stillness that radiated outward. Daniel placed his hand on a cedar tree, feeling the bark rough beneath his palm. For the first time, he felt fully present, grounded in the world as it was. Sarah found Daniel near the lotus pond, his reflection calm on the water's surface. She approached quietly, kneeling beside him. "Your storm has passed," she said softly. Daniel turned to her, his face open and gentle. "It feels as if it never truly belonged to me," he whispered. Sarah smiled, her eyes warm. "That is peace. Not an escape, but an acceptance." Daniel gazed at her, the weight in his chest gone. The lotus flowers swayed on the rippling pond, their petals catching the morning sun. In her presence, Daniel felt seen not as broken, but as whole. He whispered, "Thank you, Sarah." She bowed her head, her calm a mirror to his own. Ethan stood at the edge of the courtyard, his arms folded as he watched Daniel. For once his smirk was gone, replaced by a shadow of unease. He muttered, "How can silence change him so?" Daniel noticed and walked closer, his steps unhurried. "You do not have to fight," Daniel said quietly. Ethan scoffed, but his voice trembled. "Fight is all I know." His eyes darted away, unable to meet Daniel's calm gaze. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. "Peace is not weakness." Ethan's jaw tightened, his chest heaving as though walls inside him were breaking. For the first time, doubt flickered in his hardened eyes. Later that day, Daniel sat beneath the cedar tree, where Michael had once stood silently watching him. His breath was slow and steady, his eyes half closed in quiet reflection. He felt no need to chase thoughts or battle silence. Sarah approached, bringing him a bowl of water. Daniel looked at her, his lips curving into a soft smile. It was his first smile, not born from pride or pretense, but from peace. "I see now," he whispered. Sarah nodded gently, her expression serene. The sunlight filtered through the branches above, painting them both in dappled gold. For the first time, Daniel felt free. That evening, Daniel walked past the cedar tree and saw Michael standing in the same place as before. The silent witness met his gaze without a word. Daniel bowed deeply, his heart swelling with gratitude. Michael's calm eyes softened, a rare flicker of acknowledgement passing across his face. For a moment, nothing was spoken, yet everything was understood. Daniel whispered, "Thank you." Michael inclined his head slightly, his silence affirming the truth. The last rays of the setting sun bathed them in warm light, the shadows stretching long across the courtyard. In the stillness, Daniel felt his journey's weight dissolve, replaced by peace that could not be shaken. Daniel walked to the lake at dawn, mist rising gently from the surface. The water was still, mirroring the soft hues of the awakening sky. He sat at the edge, legs folded, his reflection staring back with clarity he had never known. He whispered, "I am no longer lost." The words carried lightly across the quiet air. Birds skimmed the lake, ripples spreading outward, yet Daniel remained calm within. His heart beat steady, no longer trapped by fear. The morning light painted his face in gold, illuminating his newfound stillness. For the first time, he looked into the reflection not as a stranger, but as himself. In the silence, he felt whole. Master Hiroshi stood nearby, watching Daniel in silence. His face was calm, yet a subtle warmth glimmered in his eyes. He stepped closer, the gravel crunching softly beneath his sandals. Daniel turned, bowing low, his movements graceful without effort. "Master, I see now," Daniel said. Hiroshi's lips curved faintly, a smile so small it was almost hidden. He said nothing, yet the stillness between them carried more than words ever could. Daniel's chest filled with gratitude and he whispered, "Thank you for letting me break." Hiroshi's gaze lingered on him, like a father's quiet blessing. In that moment, disciple and teacher stood united by silence. Daniel returned to the temple steps as the sun climbed higher. The disciples gathered, watching him quietly. He stood before them, his robe loose, his posture unforced. His eyes glowed with a peace that needed no explanation. He said, "I am not here to conquer silence. I am here to dwell within it." The words rang softly, but their weight sank deep into those who listened. Sarah smiled knowingly, Ethan's gaze faltered with uncertainty, and Michael remained still as ever. Daniel inhaled deeply, the air rich with pine and morning light. His heart carried no storm now, only acceptance. He whispered again, "I am here." A breeze stirred the trees, rustling leaves like whispers of approval. Daniel lifted his face to the sky, eyes half closed, letting the wind pass through him. "The world moves, and I move with it," he murmured. The disciples watched in reverent silence, their expressions softened by his presence. Sarah placed her hand over her heart, Ethan turned his gaze away with eyes glistening, and Michael's calm eyes never left Daniel. The air itself seemed to carry the peace he had found, weaving through the temple grounds. Daniel's robe swayed gently, his body steady as stone, yet light as air. The moment lingered, timeless, held in stillness by all who witnessed. As the sun began to set, Daniel climbed the small hill beyond the temple. The horizon stretched vast and golden, clouds painted in soft crimson. He sat cross-legged at the peak, overlooking the valley below. Silence embraced him, not heavy but alive with presence. He whispered, "I am not lost. I am here." The words were simple, yet they echoed through his being like a vow. Master Hiroshi stood far behind, watching without moving, his silhouette framed by the setting sun. Daniel's breath slowed, his chest rising and falling with calm rhythm. The world stretched before him, vast yet no longer daunting. The story ended not in triumph, but in peace.